Every season has its ups and downs when it comes to taking photo. Every season presents different opportunities for the kinds of photos that you can get. And right now, we're into spring. And spring always feels really good because it's coming out of that cold, wet, sometimes quite unpleasant wintry January, February period, and we're getting color, we're getting nice light, the days are longer. So that's what we're going to talk about because it's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring a brand new fresh photography tutorial. This week, of course, is no different. And as I say, we're into spring now. It's happening. You know, the blossoms coming out, the daffodils have already been out. There's all kinds of color starting to bloom, and there's loads of different photographic opportunities everywhere you look. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can maximize your photographic opportunities, what you can photograph during spring. Now, the first tip that everyone will tell you is, of course, to choose the right time of day to shoot. Sunset, sunrise, all of that stuff. I've been guilty of saying this in the past. It's a very obvious tip, I think. As long as you've been taking photos for probably more than about 6 months, you've probably already worked it out for yourself. The sunset or sunrise tend to look the best for a lot of different kinds of photography. But when it comes to spring, you don't actually have to wait around for sunrise, sunset. Of course, they look great. Okay, let's not get too carried away here. Sunrise, sunset both look fantastic and give you some great opportunities to capture that beautiful spring light. Sunset feels like it lasts a little bit longer. You get a bit of time after the sun's gone down, a bit of that blue hour feel. It doesn't get dark straight away. Sunrise can look fantastic. You can still get a bit of mist in those early mornings, and a beautiful golden sunrise is always welcome for any kind of landscape, but even wildlife, you know, close-up stuff. There's loads of stuff you can do with a sunrise or sunset. We all know that, but the thing I love about spring, there's always something to go and shoot at all times of day. And that is something that I think is not unique to spring, right? You can shoot at any time of day, at any time of year. But what I really like about spring is the sun never sits too high in the sky for too long to cause you a lot of problems with very harsh sunlight. You get a little bit of that, but we're going to come on to that in a minute. So what exactly am I talking about here? Well, of course, you start off with that sunrise, right? Great for landscape, great for wildlife, great for all kinds of things. You can get beautiful tones in the sky and some beautiful soft light. And if you're lucky, you can even get some mist in your shots as well. The morning presents a nice opportunity to get different types of shots. You know, the sun's not too high in the sky, so landscape is still on the cards. Maybe you could go out and take some portraits, some lifestyle shots. Maybe go find some color to take some photos of. There's all kinds of flowers now, bluebells, tulips, daffodils, wooden anemones, lots of different things that you can go and photograph in the morning. That midday stretch, when the sun is a bit higher in the sky, that's usually the time that a lot of photographers will avoid. And I understand it. I used to do exactly the same thing. But I've realized you definitely don't have to. There are other opportunities that present themselves when the sun is very high and casting those very harsh shadows. That's the time to head into the forest. That's the time to head into a shaded area. Start taking photos around there. You know, the forest in springtime presents some fantastic opportunities. And when the sun is very high in the sky, it's going to dapple through those trees and create some lovely light falling onto different parts of the forest. Take advantage of that and you can get some really beautiful shots. You could also head into the city. There's no reason to necessarily stay in nature. Yes, it's lovely this time of year, but there's no reason to stay there. You can go do some cityscapes, some architecture stuff, anything where you might get some shade away from the harsh sunlight or where you can use the harsh sunlight to your advantage. And one way you could do that is actually to lean into that high contrast, harsh shadow look. Maybe go black and white. Maybe you do portraits. Maybe you put them in black and white. Maybe do some cityscape. Again, pop them in black and white. It's a great time to experiment with that high contrast black and white look. And I love doing that. Then you've got the afternoon, where you can go out again, similar to the morning. The sun's a little bit lower again. Look for some of that color. Look for some of those spring shots. You could still go for some portraits, some lifestyle shots. There's all kinds of things you can do in that afternoon sun. And of course, as you come back into the evening, you've got sunset again. Great landscape, portraits, even street photography, loads of stuff you can do with the sunset. It's beautiful. We all understand how lovely a sunset can be. But then even past that, like I said earlier in the video, the sun goes down, but you've still got a bit of residual light left afterwards. It's not like winter, where once the sun's gone down, it's dark pretty pretty quickly. Here we've got a bit of time, bit of blue hour to play around with some of those tones. That can be great for some maybe longer exposure photography, great for some of those slightly moodier tones in the sky and stuff like that. And then you can even move into astrophotography at night. I've taken some of my favorite astro shots around this kind of time of year. Yes, summer can be great for that. August, you get great shots of the Milky Way here in the UK, but you do have to stay up particularly late. Whereas what I like about this time of year is you can still go do that probably about 10, 11 p.m. You can get some great kind of astro-y shots. Whereas of course later in the year, you're talking more sort of midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. to get those clear Milky Way shots. So spring always feels to me like it's just full of all these different photographic opportunities, you know, coming out of winter where it's windy and cold and wet. And a lot of the time, a lot of your shots are gonna look quite moody or quite kind of dark or a little bit kind of harrowing and eerie because there's no life on the trees and all that kind of stuff. Spring is great because you get so many different opportunities to take photos. Now, of course, I've mentioned all those different times of day, but there's all kinds of different compositions that you can try for as well. So of course, you've got those wider sweeping landscapes, beautiful. You could go into the forest and get some lovely bits of light. But of course, you can get up close as well. So you find bits of color. You can isolate them in the frame, surround them, frame them with other parts of the landscape or the environment. So these bluebells, for example, I always like this shot. It's actually one of my earliest shots that I was particularly happy with that I ever took. I really like how it's framed by the trees. You've got the bluebells and they're framed by the trees, but you can get in close to some blossom, to some flowers, really capture that feel of spring, the light, the color. It's a perfect time to go and experiment with some of this stuff. Now, whether you're going out to get landscapes, portraits, kind of street stuff, you know, whether you're shooting events, even anything, wildlife, nature, loads of stuff, the number one thing I would always say as a way to compose your shots, but to make sure you've got a decent shot in the bag, is to identify your subject. Now, that means maybe slowing yourself down a little bit and working out what is the specific subject of this photo, whether it's a wide sweeping landscape or a focused in 85mm portrait. It's probably a little bit easier on the 85mm portrait, but even the wider shots, identify that subject and you're gonna find it much easier to set up a composition and to have a spot in the photo where the viewer's eye can naturally rest. Now that is a huge deal to actually inviting the viewer into your photo. They can explore the rest of the image. They always have the same spot to come back to. Now that can be a person in the shot. Obviously a portrait's very easy. The subject is the subject. Wildlife, it's pretty easy. The subject is whatever the wildlife is that you're shooting, but landscapes can sometimes be a little bit trickier. You know, street photography even can sometimes be a little bit trickier depending on the kind of shot you're going for. This shot, for example, I only shot this the other day. I absolutely love the idea of this shot, but I don't feel like I executed it very well with a subject. You know, I'm shooting through a bus as it whizzes past to the other side of the street. This is in London. I love the idea of that, but I haven't executed that properly. And that's because I only thought of the shot as we were there on the street. So I am gonna absolutely do this shot properly. At some point I'm gonna nail it. I'm gonna have a model on the other side of the street. I'm gonna shoot through the bus as it goes past, manual focus to make sure I'm getting the model, and it's gonna be great. But that's why identifying your subject in that situation is so important. I knew the idea of the shot, but I hadn't executed finding the subject on the other side of the bus to really make the shot count. So while I think it's a decent shot of kind of a busy London street, it would be great if there was just one subject that you could actually focus on when you're looking at the image. And that's true of all of these things, whether it's the sun in the sunset, a lighthouse. I always use lighthouses because I happen to live near a whole load of lighthouses, but whatever it might be, finding that subject is going to be key to getting a great composition and ultimately to get a great photograph. Now, of course, there's loads of stuff that we can talk about, and I think we might do a follow-up next week, an actual part 2 of a Tutorial Tuesday, never done before. So if there's anything specific you'd like to talk about when it comes to spring photography, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments, because I'll do my best to actually cover specific things. I think we might head out. I think we might do a Tutorial Tuesday out and about, actually out taking photos. So anything you'd like to talk about during next week's Tutorial Tuesday, let me know down in the comments, because it'll all be about spring photography, but perhaps in a little bit more detail. So let me know everything you think down there. Of course, there's a full list of all the kit used for all these photos in this video and everything else down in the description, so you can check that out for yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because that really helps out the channel, helps me out, and I want you to know I appreciate every single one of you who does. I will, of course, see you next week. Well, I'll see you before then. There's more videos. Don't worry about that. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.